a world record car collection.
He just kept going. He never stopped.
I believe his goal was to have one of every car ever made.
A maverick driven to leave a mark.
We went to a wrecking yard auction, bought the whole wrecking yard.
His family promises to carry out his grand plan.
I think there was a feeling of dread, relief, excitement, and enthusiasm.
Love it. Feel the hair blowing, the top down.
But can they fulfill the patriarch's dying wish?
None of us wanted to be the ones who said we split all this stuff up. You don't want that car oil on your hands.
I'm Jamie Colby, and today I'm driving outside Tacoma, Washington, on my way to meet the heirs of a man who started with nothing, built an empire, left his heirs enormous wealth, but also an overwhelming task.
I'm Doug LeMay. My father, Harold LeMay, passed away in 2000 at the age of 81 and left us with a world record collection that has become a full-time job.
Doug has invited me to the family house, where his father lived for more than 2 decades and where he now lives and works.
Hey, Doug.
Hi, Jamie. Glad you could come.
I'm so happy to be here, but I can't figure one thing out.
What's that?
Is this a house or a garage?
Well, it's a 5-bedroom house with a 300-car garage.
300 cars.
Yeah.
Good thing I have the whole day today.
As Doug shows me around, it's easy to see this isn't just a home, but a reflection of his father's passion for the automobile.
I mean, Doug, I gotta be honest. I've been to car shows that haven't had this many cars.
Dad did it for a long time.
Everywhere you look, there's a collector car. What's your dream ride? A 1930 Cadillac 452 convertible? A 1922 Austro Daimler? 1961 Metropolitan? It's probably here, somewhere. There are even rooms completely filled with the same model or manufacturer.
These are all Packards?
This whole row is Packards, yes.
Oh my God, there's so many of them. Am I allowed to touch?
Yeah, have a seat if you'd like.
Oh my gosh, you don't have to ask me twice. Oh my goodness, look at the steering wheel. I think it has my name written all over. So many do.
Harold LeMay's fascination with cars started even before he could reach the pedals. Nancy LeMay is Harold's widow.
His mother said from the time he was born, he loved a car. He loved anything with wheels.
Harold is born in 1919 to Marie LeMay, a single mother struggling to make a living and care for 3 young children. When Harold is just 3, Marie feels she has no choice but to place Harold in the custody of friends who can better take care of him. When the couple comes to pick up Harold, they're driving a 1914 Baby Grand Chevy.
Harold was a little apprehensive. He had not met these people before.
He's only 3.
And he's only 3. And as he described, this portly man behind the wheel said, "Harold, you need to sit on my lap and you can drive the car home."
Little Harold puts his hands on the wheel of that Chevy and is instantly calm, sealing a lifelong love affair with the automobile. After driving a truck in World War II, Harold returns home and builds up a garbage and scrap collecting business. It may not be glamorous, but trash proves very profitable.
How successful was his business?
Very successful.
LeMay Enterprises eventually grows to become the 10th largest private trash removal company in America, with annual revenues topping $100 million. In 1963, Harold marries Nancy. A few years later, he has another life-changing moment.
A friend of his was in the Model T Club. He thought that that would be just the thing for him to get into.
Once he joins the club, a light bulb goes off. Harold wants to start collecting classic cars. He begins with American models, mostly Chevys and Fords, everyday cars and trucks.
How did he find these cars?
Well, he would find most of them himself.
By the 1970s, Harold's hobby really revs up. And as his grandson Eric says, so does his wish list and search grid.
It didn't matter where in the country the car was. He'd say, you want to go for a drive? And the next thing you know, you're crossing from Oregon into California.
As his passion grows, Harold starts buying nearly any car he comes across.
Grandpa never called himself a car collector. He was a car saver. He saved cars.
Harold couldn't stand to see a car crushed. It just break Harold's heart.
He went to a wrecking yard auction in Idaho, bought the whole wrecking yard.
By the mid-1990s, Harold's collection of cars totals into the thousands.
He just kept going. He never stopped.
And you never said to him, honey, enough already. We could use that money for a vacation.
No, but whenever we did go on vacation, there was always a car somewhere in the route.
As Harold's fleet expands, he runs out of room in his 300-car garage. So he snatches up over 50 properties to stockpile his collection.
He'd buy houses so that he could use the garage, you know, and then he'd rent the house, not the garage.
He even buys this 87-acre former Catholic boarding school called Marymount. We'll circle back here later.
How many conversations did you have with Harold about what should happen to the collection when he passed?
He never thought about passing at all. This was not on his agenda.
But the question is on his heirs' agenda. They're thinking about the huge challenge rumbling toward them once Harold's gone.
You've got to decide at some point, while you're alive, what are you going to do with the stuff? And that's a very confrontational thing. And you know it's kind of a burden on everybody else, and you got to have a plan.
Up next, Harold makes that plan, plus the one car he really wants but never gets.
And now, our strange inheritance quiz question. What was the first official White House car? Was it an 1899 Packard for McKinley, a 1909 White Steamer for Taft, a 1919 Pierce Arrow for Wilson, or a 1929 Cadillac for Hoover? The answer when we return. So what was the first official White House car? It's B, the 1909 White Steamer. That year, Congress passed legislation on behalf of William Howard Taft for official White House automobiles.
For nearly 4 decades, businessman Harold LeMay amasses a collection of classic cars in Tacoma, Washington that includes at least 3,000 vehicles. Even he doesn't know the exact number. But there is one car he misses out on, says his wife, Nancy.
He always wished he'd gotten a Tucker.
Preston Tucker was an American inventor and entrepreneur who designed the Tucker sedan in 1948, conceived as the car of the future.
It was so ahead of its time. It's so sleek. It has awesome lines.
But sales were doomed after Tucker was investigated for stock fraud, and only 51 cars were made before his Chicago company folded. With or without a Tucker, LeMay's vintage car collection is named world's largest in the 1998 Guinness Book of World Records. It includes true classics such as a 1910 Roadster, 1930 Duesenberg, and 1936 Auburn. Harold, now in his late 70s, starts to worry about what will become of his beloved autos when he's gone. Charlie Maxwell was friends with Harold for over 30 years.
What did Harold want to happen with the collection?
Well, he really wanted to see his collection preserved. He felt really, really bad when we would go to car auctions and he would see somebody's life collection being dispersed to the 4 corners of the world.
Easy for Harold to feel that way. It isn't he, but his heirs, including son Doug and grandson Eric, who will have the enormous burden of housing and maintaining all these cars.
Did he think about what he had amassed and what his family would face as he got older?
Yeah, he had made the decision, him and my grandmother, that they were going to create a museum.
That's right. a museum, just for Harold's cars. The family starts by requesting land from the city of Tacoma. But before officials will award the property, they ask Harold for an initial donation of at least 300 cars to get the project going.
10% of the collection. Was that hard for him?
I think it almost killed him. He had this document that he had to put his signature on, saying that he wasn't going to own this stuff at some point. And I can remember his hands shaking, and he kind of took a deep breath, and he signed it, and he handed me the piece of paper, and then he stormed off back towards home.
On November 4th, 2000, after a massive heart attack, Harold dies at the age of 81. His heirs inherit his grand car collection, an even grander dream of a museum to house it.
I think there was a feeling of dread, relief, excitement, and enthusiasm.
Two questions arise. How many cars are there, and what are they worth? The family calls in Larry Batten, owner of the Auto Appraisal Group in Charlottesville, Virginia.
It was a massive operation. The cars were located in 53 different locations. His filing system was a 32-gallon green trash bag because he never had any intention of selling or marketing a vehicle. We worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Over the 6-month appraisal, the team uncovers countless classic cars only Harold knew he had.
We would open a door that hadn't been opened in decades. It would be full of cars that had been there for years, covered with cottonwood flour, like snow on the inside of a building. And there were Bumblebee Fords and convertibles, Pierce Arrows, and cars that were so unique.
In all, Larry and his team locate, number, and value 2,973 cars, not including the countless rusted, half-wrecked hulks.
I believe his goal was to have one of every car ever made.
Larry's not allowed to say what the whole collection is worth, but independent estimates peg it at $100 million at the time of Harold's death. With the inventory complete, the family tries to realize Harold's dream of a car museum, but starts hitting some roadblocks.
Creating a museum, it's like watching sausage get made. It's really ugly and hard.
And they're not the only ones with car trouble.
Oh, come on. Get me a car that works.
That's next.
Here's another quiz question. Which classic American sports car came first? Is it the Chevy Corvette, Ford Thunderbird, or Dodge Charger? The answer when we return. So, which classic American sports car came first? It's A, the Chevy Corvette. From its introduction in 1953, Chevy has produced over 1.5 million of them.
In the early 2000s, Harold LeMay's family is struggling to honor his dying wish: the creation of a museum where his entire 3,000-plus car collection can be on public display. One that will be featured, the Black Beauty that sparked Harold's classic car obsession, Henry Ford's Model T. I meet with Harold's grandson, Eric, and his friend Mike for a driving lesson. Step 1, hand crank the car to start it.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're up for it.
You do?
All right, let's see if you can do it.
With a good crank.
Oh, not quite.
Ouch. Wait, is this a trick? Oh, come on. Get me a car that works.
Hey! All right, there you go.
Right on.
The Model T is considered the first affordable automobile, but it's not particularly easy to drive. It has 3 pedals, but the brake is on the right. What's it doing there?
You did clear the streets today?
And the sidewalks.
As we scoot around, it's easy to see why Harold fell in love with this classic.
Love it. Feel the hair blowing, the top down. There's a big tree.
There's a tree back there.
Big tree. Brake, 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 brake. Okay, brake. Oh, that's forward. Wait. brake, brake.
Oh, yeah, that thing on the right.
Throttle up.
Perfect. Not a scratch. But a collision is in store for the LeMay family as it tries to get its museum into drive.
It needed a building, it needed fundraising, all the next steps.
The family donates 600 cars to the project and $15 million, too, but it's not enough. So they hire a fundraiser who tells them they have to court corporate sponsors for more big bucks. That will mean, the LeMays are told, they will have to sacrifice their control and vision of the museum. The family agrees, but soon find themselves just two on a board of around 30.
On the one hand, you want to see the legacy and the stories of those cars preserved. On the other hand, you really can't control once it's in a museum's hand.
Exactly.
The museum adds cars from other collections to attract national attention. Then, fundraising runs tight. The board tells the family they don't have the budget to preserve all of Harold's cars, and many of the ones he donated, they say, are redundant. They decide on a step that Harold LeMay would have never, ever considered: sell some of his cars.
If you could have controlled that situation, would you have asked them to sell other cars?
I don't sell many cars.
In fact, Harold had only sold 3 collector cars in his lifetime. Family members are dismayed.
None of us wanted to be the ones who said we split all the stuff up. You don't want that car oil on your hands.
If you really didn't want them, why'd you ask for them? Because it made me feel like that's why the reason they wanted them was to sell them.
The museum auctions off 145 of Harold's donated autos. Their estimated value well into the millions. His 1940 Packard convertible Victoria sells for $113K, while his 1936 Rolls-Royce goes for more than $65 grand. The funds do their part to help the museum keep going. But when the sleek-looking building finally opens in 2012, its name's been changed from the Harold E. LeMay Museum to LeMay America's Car Museum. That reflects the museum's shift in focus from just Harold LeMay to cars from other donors as well. That's discouraging to Harold's heirs, because his wish was for a museum devoted just to his world record collection. But the family believes there's still a chance to keep his vision alive.
Eric, what is this place?
Would you believe a second museum just minutes down the road from the first? That's next.
Now, back to Strange Inheritance.
Harold LeMay's family continues to face the dilemma of how to honor his legacy. A chunk of Harold's huge car collection has been sold off, and a museum in Tacoma, Washington, originally meant to be solely devoted to Harold, now has a different mission. Then, a solution. The family decides to refit that school property that Harold purchased in the mid-1990s.
Eric, what is this place?
This is the other part of the equation that was our family learning how to save the world's largest car collection. This is Marymount. It's an event center, a museum.
Your museum?
Yeah.
Why two?
We wanted another museum that was more about the LeMay family and our tastes in collecting. We may be only 6 miles apart, but we're very different culturally from each other.
The LeMay family considers Marymount the down-to-earth little brother of the sleek, modern Tacoma Museum. It's the dirty fingernails version that celebrates Harold's cars and nobody else's. The museum depends on the hard work of Harold loyalists. Everyone here, from the tour guides to car repairmen, is a volunteer.
So not to take off on a car color, but are you in the black or in the red?
At some point, and it's not that far away, this will be a self-sustaining business. It looks really like it's going to be healthy for a long, long time.
Before I leave, there's one last car Eric tells me I need to see.
It's a 1948 Tucker.
Tucker? Wait a minute, Harold wanted a Tucker. I thought he never got a Tucker.
He did not buy this. My grandmother bought it after he died.
Really?
Yes, we knew that he wanted one, and so a group of our family went to an auction, and Grandma bought the Tucker that he couldn't have before he passed away.
Unbelievable. So he left, but you knew it was that important to have.
We knew it was that important.
What would Harold say?
He'd love it. I think if Grandpa were to look at how hard we've tried to do what he was hoping we'd do, I think he'd be really proud of it. It took a whole community, it took a lot of volunteers, it took a family that never got off track with each other. That's his legacy, basically.
One last Harold LeMay story. Back in the 80s at a garbage convention in Chicago, he caught wind of a car for sale, a 1914 Baby Grand Chevy, the same model he first tooled around in as a 3-year-old. That day he said goodbye to his mom. Well, Harold bought it on the spot, and he loaded it into the back of this fancy garbage truck that he purchased at that trade show. He and Nancy hauled that old Chevy all the way back here to Tacoma. And there it sits to this day. He never let it go. I'm Jamie Colby. Thanks so much for watching Strange Inheritance. And remember, you can't take it with you.
Do you have a strange inheritance story you'd like to share with us? We'd love to hear it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.